Hello, and welcome to Your Creative Midlife. I'm Betsy Bush. When most of us think about getting creative in midlife, we may choose low-cost, low-risk things like writing or painting or photography with our phones. My guest, Melissa Davey, took a bolder route into filmmaking. Her latest film, Climbing into Life, has been making the rounds of film festivals around the country and internationally to much acclaim. She has such an interesting journey to share with us. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me on Your Creative Midlife.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you again.
Yes. We talked about 4 years ago on my other podcast, the latest version. And just so people know, I will be including a link to that previous interview in the show notes, where Melissa takes us on the journey from her life as in the corporate world to creating her first film, which was called Beyond 60. And now she has, you've just finished, well, you finished it a while ago, but you've been taking your latest film, Climbing into Life, to film festivals around the country. I think 19 film festivals. Is that what I've heard?
Yes.
It is really super exciting, and I'm impressed with the difference between, I'd say the development, the growth in your filmmaking from Beyond 60, which was wonderful. It was a series of vignettes. And now you have a documentary about a very remarkable person. And just tell us a little bit about that film.
Yeah. Well, Climbing into Life is about the oldest woman to climb El Capitan in Yosemite National Park. And the interesting thing about her, and this is her life story, it isn't just about climbing, but it tells you how she got herself on that magic rock, climbing upwards. And, you know, she was never an athlete. She's an amazing woman, you know, an artist, an oil painter artist. She's a writer. She has published several books, and she's continuing to publish books. She's a musician playing several instruments. She was a professor of different languages. When she writes her books, she writes in English and whatever language that she wants to produce at that moment. She writes in Italian, she writes in Spanish, she writes, it's amazing. You know, she doesn't use a translator, she writes in those languages.
Incredible.
So just that alone was enough of a story to tell. But when you find out that at some point in her life, she challenged herself to step outside all of those regular things that she considered regular anyway, you know, what consumed her life, to add some physical components to get a little bit closer to her kids, who are both super athletes. And she did it as trying to connect better with them as they all grew older. And then she got the bug and, you know, became the oldest woman to climb El Capitan, which, if you've ever been there, and you've stood below El Capitan and you look up and you think, how in heaven's name does anybody get up there, let alone a 66-year-old woman? At the time that she did this, she was 66. She's now in her early 70s, and she's done it, you know, 50 times since. She climbs mountains all over the world now.
Wow. And, well, if you look at El Capitan very closely, you'll see tiny little specks making their way up, and those are the climbers. She got to climbing El Capitan because her son is, I don't know what you call it, champion climber. Tell us a little bit about Alex.
Yeah, her son is probably one of the most famous climbers in the world right now. And Alex Honnold is his name. And I'm sure some people watching or listening to this will say, oh, I know who that is. He was in a Oscar-winning film called Free Solo. in 2018. And it was done by National Geographic with a very big budget, so the visuals are amazing. And they followed him for 10 years before he was ready to do it, because free solo means that you climb this 3,200-foot straight up flat rock without any protective equipment whatsoever.
Wow.
He was wearing his t-shirt, shorts, and his climbing shoes. That's it. He had nothing else. And most people climb with ropes,
Sure.
you know, in order to save them if they fall off. So when you watch Free Solo, and I highly recommend it, you know, you might be a little nervous watching it. It's really, have you seen it, Betsy?
I have not seen Free Solo.
Oh, you need to see it.
Yeah,
You
okay.
need to see it.
Well,
And
as
you
someone
can
who
find
has
it
a
on
real
the National
Yeah, I have a real
Geographic
fear
channel.
of heights, and I'm like,
Oh.
I don't know if I could like take it. I might be like,
Yeah.
you know, have a
Oh,
pillow over my head, and
It's scary.
Yeah.
And the crew that followed him for 10 years, they were waiting for him to be ready to do it. So he had done it many times with ropes. And there's so many different, there's a couple hundred different climbing routes on that mountain. And so he had done just about every one of them. And he kind of wanted to find the toughest one to do free solo. So he
cow.
practiced over and over again for 10 years. And as every time he went up, he would, you know, he made markings in a book as to, you know, you hold on to this crag, then you find this little, you know, nubbit that you can get your hands into. So he was very scientific about it. And when you meet him, which I did, because I luckily had time to spend with him in Yosemite, and he's in the film, it's really clear to me that he would never do anything that he felt was going to kill him. You know, a lot of people say, well, what a, you know, crazy person this is. You know, who on earth would do that?
Sure.
But then I realized that he had really put 10 years into figuring out how to do this. And he felt very confident. And there is, when you watch the film, there was one day he went out and started, and he just got the feeling that, this isn't it. So he went back. And then the day that he was ready, he did it. And his film crew was there. And the film crew in the film are fascinating to watch, because they're very nervous about this. They're very nervous that they're going to see this person that has become their close friend fall and die. And they talk about it, and they're like, what will happen if we see, you know, how are we going to deal with this? But when he does it, it's just this joyous occasion, and phenomenal ability that this kid has. It's amazing. So anyway, Dierdre is his mom,
Right.
and she never climbed, but she was really interested in what he was doing and wanted to understand it better. And so she thought maybe she could get closer to him, understand him better, maybe they'd have better dialogue, whatever. And so she asked him to show her the ropes, so to speak, and they started at a climbing gym, and she got the bug. You know, she thought she was just going to do the climbing gym and it would be all over. And then she said, wait a minute, this is way too fun. And then, you know, ventured outside on smaller little mountains and boulders. And, you know, she got the bug, and she's been climbing for a number of years now.
So, what gave you the idea to talk to Dierdre? And how did you get to know her and introduce this idea of making a documentary about her?
Well, it was really funny. It was during COVID, and we were all at home, and I was on scrolling on Facebook. Like, you know, I got into Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. I was watching what people were doing, talking with people. And one day I saw an innocuous kind of post from somebody I didn't know, and it was talking about this woman, Dierdre Wolownick. And I'd made no connection to Alex. I'd seen Alex's film, but his last name's Honnold, so there was no connection there. And the woman said something to the tune of, you know, she's the oldest woman to climb El Capitan. And I was like, oh, wow, that must be amazing. And so I left I made a comment, and I said, ooh, this sounds like a great film. And
Hmm.
I just left it there. I didn't ask for her info, or I wasn't even, during COVID, I wasn't really thinking about, ooh, what's my next film? So the next day, apparently Deirdre saw this comment and she wrote to me and said, "Are you a filmmaker?" And I said, "Well, yes, I am."
Yes.
And she said, "Well, that's great because I want to talk to you because I think I have a movie." And so I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. So for the next 3 months, we met on Zoom. Me listening to her story, her getting to know me trying to figure out, is there a story there, which was pretty early on. It was
Mhm.
obvious there was. But, whether it would work. Can she work with me? Can I work with her? And what would it be like? And then decided to do it. Yeah.
Was this after she had made her climb, or were you there
Yes.
for the climb? After
Yes. It was
after the climb.
after. It
How
was
were you?
after two climbs of El Cap.
Oh.
She climbed it when she was 66 with Alex. He
Hmm.
took her up. And then she climbed it on her 70th birthday. And I met her a year after that.
That's so interesting. So it wasn't like you had to persuade her to participate in this. So she knew she had a story. But
Yes.
but what I find interesting in her story that you uncover is the way she was raised. She was raised in a
Yes.
very conservative family that
Yes.
really
Very
had
strict.
very strict family, and there were things she wanted to do as a high school student, a college student,
Hmm.
that her family just like, no, you don't
Right.
go to, you can't do these other things.
Right.
And what effect do you think that had on her later life? Do you think a lot of the climbing is kind of breaking out of breaking that mold?
Yeah, it definitely is. And honestly, that's why I call it climbing into life, because she felt that that moment she was finally free and able to look at herself and see what all of her capabilities were.
Mhm.
And that it didn't matter anymore that she waited to figure that out. She just did it when she did it. And, it's just remarkable. The story is remarkable. And we grew up at the same time. I'm a year older than she is. We're both in our mid 70s. And I understand what it was like to grow up in the 50s and the 60s, and the roles that girls played and the roles that boys played, and if you were from a very conservative family like her parents, there was a lot of limitations put on you.
Mhm.
You wouldn't be encouraged to play sports, for instance, where
Sure.
nowadays you see many, many young women in sports. But when we were growing up, it was like, maybe you
Mhm.
can play on a softball team, or maybe
Right.
you'll play tennis. But it wasn't this competitiveness or,
Yes.
die hard kind of sports for women. Women were supposed to, find the love of your life, get married, have kids, and ride off into the sunset.
Right.
Maybe with a little education thrown in there to make you a well-rounded person. But, in the film, she talks about her inability to understand men and the choices that she made around finding a husband, and how that didn't work out, and why it didn't work out, and
Hmm.
and that she was ill-equipped really to understand what it could be like and what it should be like. So it took her a long time in her life to set herself on a path to climbing into her life. Yeah.
I also feel like there's a meta thing going on here with both her story and your story of doing this film that really, I feel like you've reached new heights, pardon the pun,
Yeah.
in a very different movie, that film that is it's more well, it's one story instead of six or however many you had in Beyond 60, but it must have been a sustained effort as opposed to do a story here, do a story there. What was the process like for you? I'd love to hear more about what it
Yeah.
meant for you to go to this next level of filmmaking.
Yeah, this time, with Beyond 60, I brought on a production company because I was, right out of corporate world. I
Right.
had no idea what I was doing. And they helped me navigate, figuring out what to do, how to do it. And so I always felt that, even when I was scared, it was like, oh, I've got this whole team and they'll help me. This time I produced it and directed it myself. And I had learned from that early film and the production company exactly what I needed to do to make that happen. So I just brought on people as I needed them. For instance, when I went out, I knew that I wanted climbing scenes in Yosemite. So I wanted her on the mountains climbing, and there was no way I was going to be able to do that. So I hired a climbing videographer. Um, and,
I
and I
wondered
ended
about
up
that. That was a
hiring
question.
somebody who climbed with her
Oh my
before.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Who
So
knew there
that
were
worked out
such
really
things?
well.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And what else was different for you this time?
I think it was just the burden of knowing that every decision had to be made by me in the moment. Um, and by halfway through the filming, I realized I felt really comfortable with it, where I wouldn't have felt that way years before when I was doing Beyond 60.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, I get this. I know all that I need to get, and I know that I'll be able to edit at the end to make a story out of this. So what it did for me was give me the confidence and the chops to just go through it and do it to the best of my ability and feel good about doing that. Yeah.
Do you have a fear of heights? Were you uncomfortable with the scenes,
Let,
way up on the mountain?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and let me tell you a story. The first day that we started filming, we were going to walk in and go to the base of El Capitan so that we could get some shots of her climbing up. And the team that I had put with me, my husband was doing still shoots for the film, so he was with me. And then Rachel, who's in the film, she's awesome. She
Yes.
became my personal assistant and a production assistant. She was awesome.
Nice.
And so everybody was headed in toward El Cap. And they said, oh, it's just a little walk. And, when we get there, then she'll start climbing. And I'm like, okay. So, well, this little walk took about an hour and a half because we had to go up 1,000 feet, bouldering,
Oh.
climbing over huge boulders to get to the spot where they start climbing. I thought, naive me, that you would drive your car, park it at the bottom of the mountain, and there you are, and you just walk over and start climbing. No, these climbers have incredible stamina because they just went up 1,000 feet climbing over boulders to get to where they would start climbing. By the time I got there, I was completely out of breath. My husband had fallen backwards and hit his head. I mean, we were a mess. And I kept saying, well, you're kidding. You told me it was just a few little, steps into the woods. And they were like, well, we get so used to it. That was that.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it was scary, but it made me realize just how amazing these climbers are, and that no, I would never do it. I'm not interested in climbing El Cap or any other rock at this point, but I have great admiration for people that do. Great admiration.
Oh, I was in Yosemite, as it happens, about 18 months ago, and you see El Cap off in the distance, and you're right. So I think sometimes you assume, oh, there's one of those paved trails, and you just kind of walk
Yes.
over there and
Yes.
start. It never occurred to me that there would be,
No.
boulders and things like that going over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about. Oh, here's a question. When you were filming her, were you ever afraid that she might fall?
No, because I had learned that being roped in and having all the protective equipment that you need, that there's no way you're going to fall off the mountain. Yes, you might drop down a little, and maybe you'd bump your knee or your elbow, but no, she was very, very secure. So I was not worried about that, and she wasn't either.
I was amazed to hear that she trained for like 18 months.
18 weeks.
18 weeks before.
Weeks to get ready for the
okay.
El Cap tour. Yeah.
But the strength it required, especially upper body strength, I think
body.
what you use your arms to push up the
Yes,
the piece
the
of equipment.
Jumars, up,
right.
up. Yeah.
And that's usually the hardest thing for women to develop is that upper body strength. And yet she was able to do it.
And she does talk about that in the film. She is very thin and not real muscular. And it was a challenge, a big challenge for her. There were times she wanted to quit when she was on her way up there, but she realized, well, this is it. I have to get up in order to get off. I can't go back down this way. So, you know, she talks about that struggle. And it's interesting because my husband and I, when we met her, I remember him taking me aside saying, she doesn't look like she'd be able to do that. You know, this is amazing. She just doesn't look like she would have the strength to do it. And I think her conversation about training for 18 weeks to do this was, really an important discussion. She never would have been able to do it if she hadn't really drilled in for those 18 weeks. So.
Well, you think about all the people who train to run marathons, and things are possible. I mean, things we never thought possible are possible. So it really pushes the boundaries of what we think people can do,
Yeah. And that's Dierdre too. She did start running, when she was in her late 50s. She hadn't done that either, and she couldn't make it a mile. And she has done some marathons as well. So that
remarkable.
She's very, very determined individual.
Yeah.
She has incredible tenacity, much more than I do. So,
and myself included, I would say. I kind of wonder sometimes what it would be like to run a marathon, and I'm like, no.
I know. Oh, geez.
Tell me about the launching of this film, and you've taken it to film festivals. What is that like? What is the process to get a film into a film festival, and then what happens?
The process is difficult. The process, and I did it with the first film, and I bombed it honestly, because there is a platform called Film Freeway, and on that platform there are the 12,000 film festivals around the world that you might want to apply to. And when you apply, you have to pay a fee for every single one of them. And the odds of getting in are anywhere, they take between 1% and 10% of the submissions into their festival. Wow. So as you get into this, you realize, oh my gosh, there's so many that are going to say no. And that's exactly what happened to me and to everybody I know that makes films. So you try to run the algorithm to look for the festivals that might be interested in a film about an older woman doing something in the outdoors, and you try to work it that way, and the festivals then show up, and you can read about them, and you can research the type of films they've had in past years. It's like a job.
It sounds like applying to college,
Yes, yes.
Yeah, my
That's
safety
exactly
school,
what it's like.
my stretch school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Ivy Leagues, Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then you have your film and your trailer and your bio all on this, so that when you do choose the ones that you want to submit to, you just hit a button, pay the fee, which is anywhere from $50 to $250 each. You pay the fee, and then boom, the film gets sent over. And then within a period of time, a few months probably, you get a notice that you've been denied. They never tell you why. It's just you didn't get in, or you did. And the majority you don't get into. Yeah. So, and I went into that understanding that at this point. But to get into 19 surprised me, honestly. And the last two, I leave in 2 weeks for England.
Great.
I'll be at the Kendal Mountain Film Festival in Kendal, England. They came to me and said, we heard about this. Would you please send us your film? We won't charge you, but we want to take a look. And they said, we want you. And then the film festival that we just got back from in Gig Harbor, Washington, did the same thing. They said, we've heard from a filmmaker friend that you have a great film. Let us look at it. So I suppose as you get mature as a filmmaker and people start to recognize you, you might not have to pay the fee for every single one of them. You might be able to, get some interest and they will contact you directly. But it's a long, tedious process. And then you want to go to the film festivals because the more you're engaged, the more opportunity you have to win an award. And we've won 10 awards with this film so far.
Fabulous. What are the awards that you won? I'm just curious.
I did win one Best Director, which blew me away because that's sort of gold.
Yeah.
And then Best Documentary, the Inspiration Award. I mean, a number of them, mostly Best Documentary.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
Thanks.
Oh, congratulations. This really warms my heart.
Yeah, it's really exciting. To be 75.
Yes.
And to be, new at something and to be recognized for it. Just getting into the festival is enough to feel recognized because they only take 1% to 10%.
Right.
So to win the prizes, the awards, is incredible and affirming, and it makes all the sweat and blood and tears that you put into it worth it.
Oh, that is so exciting. What are you learning from looking at the other films at these film festivals? Are you picking up some tips, some ideas, industry stuff?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes you think about what else you might do. I mean, I've made a commitment to do films about women, older women, because I think it's really important. But then there's other things that I'm really interested in, like politics and the environment. I really, really wanted to go to Ukraine this year or next year to do a film about the women who have taken over basically everything while other men are at war, because they're fascinating and wonderful. But it's gotten to the point where it's so bad over there. I'm being told by the State Department that I shouldn't go. But those are the types of things now that are, I'm watching films and I'm seeing, I think I would be able to portray a good story with this issue. So you never know. You never know.
Are you working on something now, aside from the Ukraine story idea?
I am. I'm working on two things, just for fun. One is my friend Carl out in California is doing a film about his podcast, and I am his mentor and helping him, put the film together. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I also listen to Carl's podcast, so please tell him I said hi.
Okay,
it's called
I
I Used to Be Someone, right? I used to be somebody.
Yes.
And he's, he's in that retirement world of, we're still relevant, even after we've retired, and we're
That's right.
pickleball obsessed. And
he's just so excited. He came to my Sacramento premiere for Climbing into Life because that's where he lives. And at lunch that day, after we saw the film, he said, I've always wanted to make a documentary. And I said, well, then you should just do it. That's what I did. You should give it a try. So it was a few months later, he goes, okay, you've inspired me, but will you help me? So, I'm helping him do that, and it feels great. And it's been a lot of fun. And we filmed a couple of weeks ago out in Sacramento, and it was a blast. We had such a good time. So that will be good to put together. And then the other thing that I'm working on is the Women's Center of Montgomery County, which is here in Pennsylvania near me. It's a domestic violence group. They do tremendous work, a very sophisticated division that's connected to the hospitals, to the courts, to the lawyers, to the judges. and they are hitting their 50th anniversary. They've lost their funding from the feds, of course.
Yeah.
And really, they wanted to do a 50-year celebration film, but now they see it also as an educational film, not just for their people that come in to volunteer, but for people to see and understand that this is a pervasive issue around our country that isn't going away, and also as a fundraising tool. Right. So I've just begun the interviews for that, and we'll be working on that for the next several months.
Wow, it sounds like two very different projects, but
Yes.
both interesting. And of course, the domestic violence issue is
Yeah.
critical, and it breaks my heart to hear that center has lost funding.
It's amazing. The stories just blow you away, and I think for all of us, we need to understand that there are no socioeconomic barriers in the world of domestic violence. There are lawyers that are abused. There are doctors that are abused. There, college professors. It's not just poor people. And I think that when people recognize that, they might support the efforts a little bit more. So that's kind of my impetus to make it to make a whole story about it.
Sure. Tell me how people can see Climbing into Life. Is it going to be available pretty soon on streaming, or?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I have hired somebody to go out and try to find distribution for it. And right now, it's harder right now than it was with Beyond 60. All of the streaming platforms are sort of on a wait and see, kind of a holding pattern. And I'm hearing that from all my filmmaker friends as well. It's almost like the world situation and our country situation is holding back a lot of companies from making decisions. They've lowered their staff. They've laid people off. They've made big changes. They want to make sure that they're making decisions at the right time because they want to make money by doing it. So the agent who's out there is saying it's a much different world than even a year ago. So he thinks it's going to be a little bit slower, but he feels very confident that it will be distributed onto streaming platforms. And people can just go to my website at melissadavey.com, and there will be announcements there as to when it's available. But the trailer is on the website right now, so people can see it, and then they can follow along.
Do you have any advice for someone who's listening to you now and saying, oh my gosh, this sounds like so much fun. I've always wanted to make a film, or I have a great idea for a film. Do you have any advice for someone who's thinking that now?
Yes. I mean, a lot of people look at me or anybody like me that does something later in life, and they say, oh, I could never do that. Or I really want to, but I wouldn't know where to begin. And I want to tell people that I'm just an average person. And I didn't know what I was doing when I started it either. Yeah. And the whole point is just to start and to find the people that you need to talk to, the people with the experience. Reach out to people because they are more than happy to give you advice and share their experience, the good, the bad, the ugly. You just have to start. You have to make a list of the things that you're interested in trying, and then pick the one that you think you're the most interested in, and then call somebody. If somebody wants to do a film and they've never done one, call me. And I can give you all of the advice that I have, and I might even send you to a couple of other filmmakers I know, because many of us didn't go to film school. And you don't need to make a film. You just need to have the right people around you to make that happen. So it's not being shy about asking for help. That's what it's about.
That's great advice, and that's always the first step, right? Mm-hmm. Deciding what it is and picking up the phone and getting out there. And I would also imagine making something of a commitment, when you decide you want to make a film, this is what you're going to do.
Yes.
I find sometimes, and even in my own life, when you're older, you have a lot of things are kind of swirling around you, right? There's home,
That's
there's
so true.
partners, children, grandchildren maybe, and
Yep.
it's hard to kind of say, hey, this is my time. I'm doing this right now.
Yeah. Especially for women, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that we do, and I do. I have 2 children, I have 3 grandchildren, and I have a husband, and, you know, but you figure out the balance and you figure out that you are better as an individual for all those family members if you're doing something that you love. Because it keeps you young, it keeps you engaged, it keeps you happy, excited,
Yeah.
motivated. You know, and I can't imagine what it would be like if I wasn't doing this right now, because I did have that choice. I could have just, you know, retired, and I don't know what I would have done. But I don't think I would be as happy or excited or feel as engaged in the world as I do if I wasn't doing this right now.
Melissa Davey, this has been an incredible conversation, inspiring. I feel motivated, and I hope my listeners do too, because this is really exciting. And I have my fingers crossed that Climbing into Life is going to be available for streaming. I know you'll keep me in touch, and I'll keep in touch with you about that, because I know everyone listening to this conversation is like, I need to see that movie, right? Because
I hope they do.
Yeah, that's right. You know, the older woman, the 66-year-old woman who Dierdre
Wolownick.
who
Yeah.
got herself up to the top of El Capitan and down again in one go, and has done it many, many times since. It's amazing what is possible when you dedicate yourself to it. It's pretty amazing. Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been really a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been great talking with you.
Thanks so much for tuning into Your Creative Midlife. I'd love to know if you're doing something creative in your midlife. Please reach out to me at yourcreativemidlife.com. And if you liked us, please give us a thumbs up and leave a review. Thanks again. I'm Betsy Bush.